Hello my sweet friends, welcome back. We are here to pick out our November TBR. I could be wrong, but I think the first time I did a TBR jar video was November 3 years ago. That's insane. I need to check actually. But we've been doing these videos almost every month for the past 3 years. Obviously I did not invent this idea at all. Many people have done it way before me, but I love it so much. Like, this is truly my favorite way to pick my TBR. So I'm happy that you guys still enjoy watching it because I definitely still enjoy filming it. But as you might be able to tell, our TBR cart is looking a little empty, which is great. That is kind of the goal. I just kind of have this little challenge inside my own brain. Like, it's just something I've decided to do, I guess, to basically just try and work on my TBR for the rest of the year. We've only got 2 months left, which is so crazy. But just kind of like see how far I can get through my TBR cart before starting another new year. I just like the idea of going into a new year with kind of like a fresh TBR, and maybe we can go book shopping in the new year, pick out a bunch of new books. But for now, I just want to focus on minimizing my TBR as much as I can. I also just want to say everyone's relationship with their physical TBR is completely different, and whatever your relationship is or your mentality is, that's okay. How I feel about mine doesn't have to impact how you feel about yours. But for me personally, having a lot of books on my physical TBR stresses me out. I don't like having hundreds of books on my physical TBR. If you do, that is okay. I think I remember Jack Edwards once saying that he sees his physical TBR and his bookshelves almost like a wine cellar. He wants to be able to collect books over many years and just pop them on his shelves, and he knows that one day he'll walk in and pick that book off the shelf. But he loves having a lot of options. He loves collecting books for years and years and just having them sit on his shelves unread. Like, that doesn't bother him. And I think that's such a beautiful way to look at it, but that's just not how I feel about my own books. So I'm feeling really encouraged that we're getting through the TBR, and I'm excited. It feels like a little challenge, a little game with myself. So I guess we'll see how well we get through the physical TBR this month. But also, in saying that, if I get a prompt where there's just not an option on my physical TBR, maybe I'll pick a Kindle book or something like that, because I don't know if I'll have an option for all of the prompts now that I have less books here. Hopefully that makes sense. But as usual, I'll be picking 6 prompts out of my TBR jar and trying to find a book that works with that prompt. So let's just get straight into it. Prompt number 1. I dropped one out of the jar. I saw it. A reread. This is actually perfect. If you guys follow me on TikTok, I posted a 10 books I want to read before the end of the year, 10 before the end. I've seen a bunch of people doing it. It looks like a lot of fun, and so I created my own 10 before the end, and one of the books on that little TBR, I guess, is a reread, and that book is Funny Story by Emily Henry. So I know it's not on the TBR card, but obviously a reread. It has to be this one. This book has been on my mind a lot recently, and I've just been itching to do a reread. This is one of my top 3 Emily Henry favorites, and actually out of my top 3 favorites by Emily Henry, it's the only one I haven't done a reread of. My top 3 are Happy Place, Beach Read, and Funny Story, and I've reread Beach Read, I've reread Happy Place, but I have never reread Funny Story. So I'm actually really excited to do a reread, and that's the perfect prompt since I already wanted to do this anyway. So we're off to a great start. Moving on to prompt number 2, we have even amount of pages. I love ones like that because I feel like I kind of get a bit of control over the options, you know? Let's try Us Against You because I really want to finish this trilogy by the end of the year. This one is... the last page number in this book is 416. That is including the bits at the end, acknowledgements and stuff, but it's the last page number, so I'm gonna go with that. It's so hard to try and look at page numbers without ruining anything for yourself, but I think I'm gonna go with this because it meets the prompt in my opinion. So this is the second book in the Bear Town trilogy. I read the first book a couple months ago, and I've been meaning to get to the second book, but to be honest, I know it's gonna be heavy, I know it's gonna be a lot, so I just wanted to be mentally kind of ready to go into it again. But I'm really excited to read this one, and maybe I can read the second one in November, and maybe then I can read the third one in December, potentially. I know the third one is quite long, so I'm intrigued. I was talking to Sarah about this and saying how I need to continue the series and read the second book, and she was really excited about it, and I feel like that made me more excited about it. If there's anyone who's going to convince you to read Beartown, it's always going to be Sarah. So Sarah, if you're watching this, I'm doing it. I'm reading book number 2. Moving on to prompt number 3, we have a book set in New York City. Okay, do we... I don't have high hopes for this, to be completely honest. The only other thing is sometimes a book can be set in New York City, but you don't find out until you're actually reading it. So it needs to tell me on the back of the book, otherwise I can't know for sure. Martha's Vineyard. Obviously fantasy books, that doesn't work at all. Oh! In present-day New York, Sarah Harper boards a plane bound for the west coast of Ireland. Hey, that might be the closest we can get. I think I'm gonna go with the story collection, purely because it's the only one that even mentions New York City on the back of the book. So it's the best I can do with this prompt and with the books that I have. It is technically set in Ireland. However, our main character either is coming from New York or like lived in New York. It says, in a quiet village in Ireland, a mysterious local myth is about to change everything. 100 years ago, Anna, a young farm girl, volunteers to help an intriguing American visitor translate fairy stories from Irish to English. But all is not as it seems, and Anna soon finds herself in the heart of a mystery that threatens her very way of life. In present-day New York, not even New York City, but New York, Sarah Harper boards a plane bound for the west coast of Ireland, but once there she unearths a dark secret that could change the course of her life. Interesting. I think this is just like general fiction, I guess. Fairy story sounds really fun. This has been on my TBR for a while, so it would be really nice to get to this one as well. In my head, it kind of sounds like it'll be quite cozy. I could be wrong with that. Like, I don't really know much about this book, but it does look fun. Like, tell me that doesn't just give like super cozy vibes. I actually really like the cover of this. Like, I want my bookshelves to look like that. It's just so cute. I really just don't know what to expect with this one, but I'm intrigued. So I'm gonna add that officially to the November TBR. Prompt number 4. We're already halfway through. What the heck? We have a boring first sentence. Okay, so we're gonna have to read some first sentences and see what we think. Let's start off with Dance of Lies. I feel like typically a lot of books try to start off with a pretty gripping first sentence. Obviously not every single time, but I feel like, isn't that the goal? Like, isn't that what you learn in like creative writing when you're in school? That you should like start with something interesting and like get the readers hooked immediately. So I assume this is supposed to be a prompt that's like a little bit difficult to achieve, but we'll see. Okay, that's an author's note. That doesn't count. Ooh, pretty map. This one says, voices speak to me in the endless dark. I wouldn't say it's like so boring, but I wouldn't say it's so interesting. Let's read maybe like 3 first sentences, and whichever one is the most boring is the one that I'll add to the TBR. So let's also do, the ribbon binding their wrists together was as red as a wound. That's a bit more interesting, I fear. Whoa, that's the prologue that I just read, but then the first like actual chapter, the first sentence is this. The dining table was set for a feast, but all the carving knives had been hidden. The last thing we needed was the stabbing of an oligarch over carne asada. Okay, a few words that I don't know, but that actually sounds really interesting and therefore probably won't be chosen. Let's choose one more first sentence. Let's do The Voice in the Wind, because this is another one on my 10 before the end. The first sentence of this one is, the city was silently bloating in the hot sun, rotting like the thousands of bodies that lay where they had fallen in street battles. That's not very boring, is it? I think out of the 3, I think the most boring first sentence is Dance of Lies. So I think I'm gonna have to go with that one. What was this one again? Voices speak to me in the endless dark. I wouldn't say any of those were like actually boring, but out of those options, I think this is the most boring. I believe this one is a YA fantasy book. This is her debut novel. Interesting. This has been on a monthly TBR of mine a couple times, but I am determined to actually get to it this month. But this one follows Vasily, once a dancer in King Illyrian's court before he framed her for murder, is offered a deal. Become the king's spy at the month-long royal gathering and he'll grant her freedom. This sounds really good. I love like a really classic fantasy where there's like castles and balls and like just that like classic kingdom, kings and queens, like all of that sort of stuff. I really, really enjoy that in a fantasy. I have no idea what the magic system is going to be like. Enemies to lovers. Interesting. I've seen a bunch of people read this in the last few months. It's been out for a little while now and I've heard good things. I feel like a lot of people have really enjoyed it and that has got me excited. Also, I just love this cover so much. I feel like I say this every single time that I like talk about this book or show this book, but I'm just obsessed with it. It reminds me a lot of Stephanie Garber's covers with the archways. Obviously it's very different still, but it has that same kind of like vibe to it. And they're some of my favorite covers ever, so I love that. Moving on to prompt number 5, shortest book on your TBR. I feel like I already know what that's gonna be just by like looking at my TBR. I think it has to be this book. This is Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and I believe this is just like a general fiction book about a woman who is just kind of living a very normal life. She's a mum, she's a wife, but her life didn't go the way that she expected it would go. Like she thought she would maybe be doing more more if I had to like guess. And I think it also talks about addiction as well, or like alcoholism specifically. And I recently read Blue Sisters, which talks a lot about addiction, and I found it really interesting. I think the topic of addiction and it running through families and things like that is just a very interesting topic to read about. Very sad, of course, but just fascinating. And as someone who has not struggled with, I guess, like substance addiction or anything like that, I find it very insightful as well, and like helpful to understand where people are coming from, and I guess how people can fall into it as well. So I'm very intrigued by this one. I got sent this one by the publisher a little while ago, and it's one of those books that I just like don't know if I would have seen if it hadn't been sent to me by the publisher, but it does sound like something I think I could really enjoy. And this one is quite short. It is 284 pages long, which is such a nice length. Even just reading the back, I like how it's written. It says, Leah is unraveling. She resents the world in which her artistic aspirations have been sidelined by the overwhelming demands of motherhood, and the ever-present rift between herself and her mother-in-law Christine is best dulled by increasingly fuller glasses of wine. So it sounds like marriage in turmoil, family dynamics, motherhood, addiction. Honestly, it sounds very interesting. I think it's obviously going to be a slightly heavier read because it also looks like it might talk about some mental health issues as well. I'm hoping it'll be a story of like hope, you know, like it'll end with kind of like a happier ending, just based on what I can see on the back. It sounds really good, so I'm very happy to have that on my TBR. That was another one that's been on one of my recent monthly TBRs, and I just haven't been able to get to it, so I'm excited for it to be back on the list again. And moving on to our final prompt. It always goes so quick. I always get so sad when I get to the last prompt because I'm like, what do you mean it's over? I just want to pick like 10 more prompts. Like, I'm having such a good time. Okay, last prompt is a memoir. I don't have a memoir on here, to be completely honest. I could get one on my Kindle, but I think I'm just gonna pick a new prompt. My TBR, my rules, so sorry. If you have any good memoir recommendations though, please let me know, because I'm not against reading memoirs. I just don't have any in my head that I've been like wanting to read right now, at least that I can think of. So let me know if you have, yeah, some good memoir recommendations. Is there more than one? Oh no, I dropped it. Okay. A book that has been on your TBR for at least 6 months. This is a great prompt to end off with. Okay, pretty much all of them, I would say. What was 6 months ago? If it's the end of October right now, which is the 10th month, I guess that would mean April. So my friends, no, I can't include that. This whole duology could be an option. I don't think Winter's Promise could be. I don't think Ritual could be. I think this one could be. I think this one could be. That one can't be. We have a few options down the bottom as well. I either want to go with one of these two, A Voice in the Wind or Our Infinite Fates. I think I should do A Voice in the Wind because this is on my 10 before the end. It's on my 25 books I want to read in 2025. It's been on my physical TBR for a very long time, and I'm genuinely excited to read it, so I don't know why I haven't got to it yet. This is a book by Francine Rivers. It's the start of a trilogy. Obviously, I have the whole trilogy. I bought it as a box set from an op shop or like a secondhand bookstore last year sometime, and I've read a few books by Francine Rivers and loved them. She writes Christian fiction books, so she wrote Redeeming Love. She's written a bunch of other ones, but I feel like Redeeming Love is probably her most famous one. And I love the way she writes. She just writes about women in so many different situations and women just going through so many things, and I feel like they are always stories of like faith and hope and like seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And I've heard incredible things about this trilogy. This is a favorite series for so many people who have read a bunch of Francine Rivers books, and every time I mention it, someone is always like, oh my gosh, Rachel, you have to read this. This is also like one of my mum's favorite books. I think she actually borrowed it from me for a while because she did a reread. She read it a long time ago, and then when I told her I found the books at an op shop, she was like, can I borrow them? I'd love to do a reread. And she did like a full reread. Anyway, I'm excited to read this. I don't actually know what the storyline is. I know it's set in Rome because you can literally see the Colosseum behind, so I'm assuming it's more of like a historical fiction situation. Actually, where is the blurb? Oh, there's a glossary at the back. Interesting. Wow. I have the box set. Maybe it has information on there. No? Okay, cool. Like, what is this book about? Let's look it up on Goodreads. The narrative is centered on an ill-fated romance between a steadfast slave girl and Marcus, the brother of her owner and handsome aristocrat. Oh no, ill-fated, but like romance. I think it's gonna be sad. She is forced to keep her religious identity a secret in order to survive. Confused and alone, she only has her faith to cling to as she tries to subtly bring God into the lives of her captors. Wow, it actually sounds really interesting. I am so intrigued, and I can't wait to like have have discussions about this book with the people in my life who have already read it, because I think it'll be one of those ones that I'll want to talk about afterwards, you know? But anyway, those are all of the books that are going to be on my TBR for the month of November. Let's do a quick recap. First of all, we're going to do a reread of Funny Story. I'm so excited about this one. Another one I'm really, really excited about, Us Against You by Frederick Bachman's second book in the Beartown trilogy. Then we have The Story Collector, Dance of Lies, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and lastly, A Voice in the Wind. This one is also so floppy. I think because it's secondhand, it's been read a bunch of times. How good is that? There we have it, our second last TBR of 2025. Absolutely crazy. I would love to know if you have any books in your mind that you definitely want to read before the end of the year. Like, what is your 10 before the end, or 3 before the end, or what are the books that you're just hoping to get to before the end of the year? Let me know. But I love you guys so, so much, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.